Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and welcome to Dear Profiler Pat, where I give advice. You don't have to take it, but I'll give it anyway, and you can take it for what it's worth. Um, every time I do this show, I answer a particular question somebody sent in, but oftentimes I not only answer their question, but it's a little broader because it's amazing how one person's question may not be exactly what we're experiencing, but some aspect of it does is something that we need to think about. And so it can be broader. So if the topic isn't exactly you, stay tuned anyway, because you might find out you get something out of it. If you'd like to get one of your questions answered, please do send an email to profilerpatbrown@gmail.com and put in the title in the subject line, Dear Profiler Pat, so I know that you're asking a question. You will stay anonymous. I don't give people's names out. And if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications and check my playlist because I have different playlists for different topics. Like one would be life relationships, another one is just life in general, another one might be aging. So check those out to see what might interest you the most. All right, so to the question today, do I have to get married if I don't believe in it? I've heard a lot of people with this problem. They don't really think they need the paper, do they? And under what circumstances do you need the paper? And it's a little more complicated than just a gut feeling or not wanting to go along with the conventions of society. It's so much more complicated than that. So I'm going to try to bring out some of these issues. Let me read the email I got. Hi, Pat. I discovered your channel about a year ago and have been a viewer ever since. Oh, that's always nice. I love your blunt personality and honesty when discussing cases. It's very refreshing to see. Oh, thank you. So I am a 28-year-old and I have a boyfriend that I love very much, but we are able to have separate lives to some extent. Sometimes I feel pressure from my family and from society as a whole to get married, but honestly, I don't want to. I've seen plenty of examples of couples who have been together for years and years without getting married, and some of them even have multiple children and still don't tie the knot officially. I don't really want children, and I know that my boyfriend and I love each other without needing a marriage certificate to prove that. I think that if anything, my boyfriend would want to get married and have children more than I would, but he still doesn't feel the need to be officially married. My question is, are people right to think that this is strange to feel this way? I want you to be honest with me, as I know you will be, lots of laughs, because I seriously question myself sometimes. Thanks so much for all that you do. Keep being amazing. Oh, gosh. So that's lots of nice compliments and a question for me. All right. So there's a bunch of issues here. One is, what is your idea of marriage? And what is your idea of a long-term relationship? You're 28 years old. You've been with this boyfriend for, let's see, what'd you say here? Well, it's not an exact year in here about how many years you've been together. And you're saying that you have separate lives to some extent. Sometimes when you get letters and emails from people, you don't exactly know what they mean. And maybe they're being a little, trying to be obtuse, so you don't know what they're actually saying. You have separate lives to some extent. Does that mean you don't live together? Does that mean you do live together, but you're very busy with your own lives, your work lives, your personal lives? Um, what is your actual relationship? And this is a problem. So we can have different kinds of relationships. We can have a relationship where we can have a significant other who doesn't live with us, who we enjoy their company of, but we're not really intending to move in together and buy a house together, have kids together, have a whole 50 years together. That isn't really what's on our mind. We're really just enjoying their companionship and having our freedom to some extent as well, where we're not really committing. It doesn't sound here like you're really committed to each other. It sounds like you like each other's company. Now, the next thing you say, which concerns me, email writer, is you say, I don't really want children. All right, you put the word really in there. You're not sure. I don't want children is a statement. I don't really want children is, but maybe there could be some possibility. So I don't think that at 28 years old, you really know if you ever want children. A lot of people think I want the freedom. I don't want to be weighed down with those kids. My son said something interesting to me the other day. He's in his 40s. He's not married yet, has no children. And he said some of his friends have ended up with children, not because they planned it, shall we say. And they were like, I was dead set against children, but no, my kid is everything to me. I can't imagine life without him. Now, why is that? Well, it's because we're human, and that's how humans do seem to love having children, to having those babies, to having that child that's theirs, that looks up to them, that runs to them and says, Mommy, Daddy. I mean, there's something incredible about that. There really is. For myself, I wasn't sure I really wanted children, really. And when I was pregnant, I was like 8 months pregnant when I was in California, and I was walking down the street. I walked into the store, and there was this. I remember this guy was Greek. I don't know why I know he was Greek, but anyway, I don't think it was a Greek store. But at any rate, this fellow says, "Oh, look, you're pregnant. Oh, look, you're going to have a little." And I didn't know what the sex was going to be because hadn't asked for that. I don't remember 40 years ago could do that. But anyway, he's like, "Oh, you're going to have a little girl, and it's so lovely." And I'm like, because I was in a bad mood. And he said, "No, when she's born, she's going to be a beautiful little girl, and you're going to love combing her hair." And I thought, "Oh my God, I don't even do my own damn hair. The last thing I care about is having to comb kids' hair." And I was not overly nice to the fellow. I wasn't so sure I wanted that baby. I mean, I hadn't really planned the baby. I went off the pill. After I got married, I went off the pill thinking it'll be like a couple of years before I got pregnant. It took me like a month. Anyway, so it was a kind of a surprise early-ish pregnancy. So the baby was born. My daughter was born. And I took one look at her and fell madly in love. I'm madly in love. I mean, a feeling I've never had with anything else in my life. And that repeated with my second child that was born to me 2 years later. That was my son. And then I had a third child who I adopted when he was 5 years old. And that feeling came again. Surprised the hell out of me. But I still hated combing her hair. I didn't do that crap. I gave that job went to my husband and his relatives. I'm like, yeah, no. So we're not all the same kind of mommy. But I didn't know. I was a youngest child. I was a baby of the family. I didn't take care of other younger siblings or anything. I really didn't know. But when that happened, it changed everything, and I've never ever regretted it. And my kids are now in their 40s, and I have a granddaughter, and I still don't regret a bit of that. I'm so glad that that part of my life, I got to have that family, got to have the children. It was just amazing. And I don't know when you're 28 years old sometimes. Now, I was 24 when I got married, 23, somewhere around there. Anyway, had a baby, I think around 24. And I don't know that I knew what I was getting into, but I got into it anyway. And you're 28, which these days is, when I was, it was back in I married in 79. And I thought that by the time I was 24, I was getting old, or 23, I was getting old to get married. These days, people are like, heck, yeah, I don't want to worry about that till I'm 30, 35. And it's still a problem trying to get pregnant later in life. So it can be an issue for having a family. But people are, women are more into careers and stuff. And so they do take longer to sometimes find the person. You're 28, you found a guy you really like, but you're not really sure you want to have kids with him. But you didn't say, what was the statement again? I don't really want children, but you put the really in there. So I think you still question, and you're only 28. A life is a long, if you live a long time, you might be surprised how you change your mind. Here's the real problem, though. You say, I know that my boyfriend and I love each other without needing a marriage certificate, but they're also saying that my boyfriend, if anything, which means if something, my boyfriend would want to get married and have children more than I would. There is your real problem. If he does decide he wants to have a family and children, what are you going to do? Are you going to tell him no? Are you going to say, I still don't want kids? Or are you just going to go ahead and have them because he wants them? Or is he not pushing it because you're actually not the one? I've seen this happen before where this guy says, I don't want any kids. I'm perfectly happy. And then he ends up dumping his girlfriend. And within a year, he got a new girlfriend. And then 2 years later, he's got kids. What the hell? It's because you weren't the one that made him want to be the family man, to have the family, to have the kids, to have all of that. It wasn't enough. So maybe he's not that into you. Just saying. You got to consider that. If he does want kids and you're not into kids, and maybe you're just really not the one. He's biding his time. So be careful of that. No, sometimes we're not really realistic about our relationships, and we should be. So if you're happy just being around him, having him as a boyfriend, and he's happy having you as a girlfriend until he decides he wants to have kids and get somebody else, then you're all good. But you might be dumped when that time comes. Or he's going to say to you one day, I love you, but I want kids. And what are you going to do? Well, are you going to go ahead and have them? Because even if you don't want them, now you might find out you end up having them and you love them, and you're like, oh, thank God he pushed me into that. But you can think this is the way things really are. You got to know who you are. You got to know what you want. So let's get to now the issue of the marriage part of it. You say that he would be the more likely to want to get married. Again, you're not on the same page on the marriage thing. And why is that? Is it because in his mind, being married would be a wonderful thing? Does he, I don't know what his parents' situation is and what your parents' situation is, but my parents stayed together until they died in their 90s. I never knew anybody. My aunt and uncle, they were my only aunt and uncle. They stayed together until they died in their 90s. I always thought I'd get married and stay married forever. Now, I got divorced after 25 years, but I never thought that. I always thought it was for life. I believe strongly in marriage, and I wanted that for myself. I wanted the marriage, the family, the house, And I got it for a good period of time. It just didn't work out in the long run, but still, I got a good portion of what I wanted. So not too awful. But what do you want? What does he want? Does he want that family? Does he want the house with a picket fence and the wife that he comes home to if she's not working? Odd job till you never see each other. That's a problem these days. Does he want to have that feeling of sitting around the dining table, or at least in the same room? Does he want to have the kids? Does he want the whole family thing? And you don't. So this is the biggest issue here. I think, but you might have different visions of the future. Did his parents hang in for the duration and were married or not? What about your parents? What are you actually looking at? Because you're saying you feel like you're being pressured by your family and from society to get married. If your family's pressuring you, I'm going to say it's probably because they believe in marriage and they think you would be happier if you only had that husband and the children and the family and the home and all those goodies. So the real problem, I think, comes between the two of you. Would you have two different visions, and it's not really coming together? And I said maybe your boyfriend really the reason he might dump you and go on and find another woman who wants to get married and have children is because he really isn't as into you as you think, and he wants that. Or maybe the reason you don't want marriage and children is because you're not as into him as you think you are. Maybe you have that. Maybe you're like, I like him as a boyfriend, and I don't really want to have kids. What if you 2 years from now met that guy, and it was the guy, and you just couldn't wait to get married and have kids with him? Maybe you're the one who's not that too into him. So a lot of this is emotional in your own life. What do you want out of life? Now, let's go on to the society issue, your family's opinion and your society's opinion. Should you get married just because your family wants it, the society wants it? Well, I hate to tell you this, but you actually live in society. I mean, a lot of times we think that we have the right to live any way we damn well please. Screw all of you. I'm not doing what you want. I'm not doing what society wants. I'm doing what I want. But you live in society. You will have interaction with society, and that society not so much judge you as that, but you're just part of that society. They will react in certain ways. So when you are a boyfriend, girlfriend, maybe not even living in the same house, people think of you in a certain way. And if you're happy with a certain way they think of you, you're good. You're good, because that you don't want them to think of you in a different way. But if you want the society to think of you as a couple and a family, and they think of you that way when the two of you make a commitment to a marriage, if you don't do that, they will think of you as, well, hippie freaks or something like that. Or, one of those, oh yeah, no, they're really not committed to each other. My gosh, they will respond to you that way. If you're okay with that response, that's fine. Maybe you want to go live in the mountains someplace in some, weird collective of some sort, and you're happy doing that, and that's the way you want to live. You live in a cabin, and you're going to be free, and you're going to be, you don't care about society, and you're going to have wild kids that run around, and you're going to, little house on the prairie updated, whatever. You have the right to do that, but you have to understand that that's what you get too. You may have to move to a place where that is acceptable. But if you're going to live in a place where it's not acceptable to the general population, to the people you're hooking up with, or you're interacting with, you're going to have to get the response back. And so will those children you have. So the children are part of society. And when you flaunt something against society, and then your children have to deal with that, you're going to have to accept that that's what you're putting your children through. And I'm not saying you can't do that. There are people who, go against society in ways that maybe other people are uncomfortable. You might be a gay couple with children, and you've chosen to get married, maybe even chosen to get married because you want to be married as a gay couple, and you have some children, and those children have two mommies or two daddies, and certain parts of society aren't happy with that, and it's hard, the kids have to keep freaking explaining that crap. Now, I'm not sitting here to just say what I think society is right or wrong. I'm just saying it's part of society. So then you have to deal with that. Some places it's easier to deal with that than other places. And your children will be able to grow up more comfortable or less comfortable. And so, and your family the same way. If you bring, for example, here's something I could say. I spent a lot of time in India. A lot of Indian friends, Indian American friends in the United States. Now, some of my Indian American friends, their children, because they're my age, their children have married other families that are Indian American. In other words, the kids have, they've grown up here in America, so they're really Americans, but their parents are Indian, and so they have the Indian influence. They look Indian, in people's minds, and they go back to India sometimes with their parents and visit their relatives, and they eat Indian foods, and maybe they go to a Hindu temple or a Muslim mosque or whatever the heck, or maybe they're Christians and they go to Seventh-day Adventist churches, different things in India, but they're in America, and they're in the American community, but the smaller community is Indian focused as far as some of the cultural stuff. Well, I have seen kids marry other kids from similar families who are both, their parents are Indian Americans. And it's much easier for them than the kids who marry non-Indian Americans. Why? Because a non-Indian American is not familiar with all of the Indian traditions and religion, stuff like that. They don't eat the same way. They don't have the same love of Bollywood. They don't have it. They're awkward in that thing. Now, can it work? Sure, it can work, depending on how much effort that person who is not part of that community puts out, and also the spouse that is part of the Indian American community marrying outside of that, he has to get along with whatever the culture of their mate is. And it could be all kinds of things. So, depending on who they marry. And they have to learn to get along with those parents in that society. It's not as easy as if you marry within the culture and everybody is more comfortable. Now, I married a Jamaican. So my parents had no comfort level with Jamaicans. We did not have get-togethers with Jamaicans and my Jamaican in-laws and my parents. It wasn't because of racism. It's just that they were so different culturally that pretty much we just went to events over here and we went to events over there. The wedding, everybody came together for the wedding, but after that, it was there was really no mixing in that. Not racial, all cultural. Luckily, I got along well with his family. He got along well with my family, but we had to accommodate. I've spent time in Jamaica, and he, of course, lived in America, so we were able to do that. And then our kids grew up, and we managed that. But you have to be aware of that, if nothing else. You have to be aware. So when you get married, you have to be aware of the culture you're marrying into with the other person and their own personal issues. When you have kids, it gets even more important because those children don't have any choices who their parents are. And now they've got you two as parents. And what are you doing as parents? What are you giving them? What society are you giving them? What place in society are you giving them? Is it going to be easy for them, comfortable for them, difficult for them, whatever it is? And sometimes there's certain things we can't do too much about, but sometimes we can make choices that are better than others. But we should at least be aware of those choices. So if families believe in marriage and you don't get married, will that affect their relationship with you? Probably, because they won't understand it. They'll keep saying, why aren't you guys getting married? Why can't you commit to each other? What is your issue? Don't you want to protect the children? If you get a marriage license, then the children have protection, which is true. When you don't get married, it gets more complicated. Don't you want your kids to be able to proudly say, these are my parents and they're freaking married? And people go, well, yeah, I know your parents never get married. So the family may be upset about that because they believe that if you cared about each other, for God's sakes, you can accept the piece of paper that will bind you as a family within the law. As far as the religious issues go, some people just go with justice of the peace. Other people go through an entire religious ceremony because that means more than even the piece of paper does. So, that again is the society that you are within. How much communications do you have with your family? How connected are you with your family? If you got a family that is a pain in the butt and you've never gotten along with them anyway, this will be adding more fuel to the fire. But maybe you don't care because it's never been a good thing. So you want to live 3,000 miles away, and you're happy to say, hey, you live over there, we're going to live over here. But you have to have both sides of this. This is a tricky part about a relationship. Both sides matter. So he's also got to be okay with his family and his relationship with that and all his relatives and his culture and all that stuff. It's tricky. So I can't give you an absolute answer, but I think that you have to think things through as to what marriage means to you, what it would mean to the children, whether you're going to have any children at all. Now, if you absolutely knew that you didn't want children and your boyfriend didn't want them either, 100%, you have a different situation, but I don't think that's what you're saying. Because you slipped up in a few places, which means to me it's still a gray area, those kiddies. So there are people who go through life never having children and never wanting them. And I respect that. And there are couples who make that choice. I have a good friend who has been a friend for quite a while now. And his relationship with his wife, both of them decided they did not want children. And he's 80 years old now. His wife has passed on, but they never had children. And he says they never wanted them. I don't know if I never got to talk to the wife to see if that was true for her too, but they made that choice. And so be it. They made their life. They did get married. They were married people, but they chose not to have children. And so you can make bold choices, but you ought to understand your choices. And that's the only thing that I wonder about, because a lot of times we're surprisingly dense when it comes to our own emotions and our own reasoning for things. And we don't want to really recognize things for what they are. And that can be problematic, because we want what we want and we aren't willing to look at the entire situation. Or we want what we want, but we don't want to find out what we don't want to find out. That's another whole thing. Yeah, when I before I got married, I saw issues with my future husband. I saw issues. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have a family. That's what I wanted. So I ignored those issues. They came back to bite me. We stayed married for 20 years, but they were there. And people say to me, "Well, Pat, didn't you see that before you got married?" Well, probably. But I decided to ignore them because I wanted what I wanted, and I decided to ignore what I saw. I still did get to be married and have a family, and I'm happy about that. And he was a good father to my kids. So I got a lot of what I wanted, but I didn't get everything. And before I got married, I saw that. So when you're looking at your life, are you looking at it clearly? Are you really looking at it clearly and saying, is this what I really want? Is this what he really wants? Is our reality really what I'm seeing? Or am I slightly manipulating what I see and what I want and what he wants? So I don't know where you're going to end up with all of this. So the final answer would be, no, you don't have to get married just because society says so, your parents say so. You have to be true to yourself, but you also have to understand you live in society and you are connected to your families. And you also have to look at why you have this particular idea. And as far as the kids go, having children, you have to really understand why you don't want children. Why you think you don't want children, not really wanting children. Is it because you're afraid of the responsibility? Is it afraid it's going to tie you down? Are you afraid of what some people are afraid of? Are you bringing them into a terrible world, which pretty much this world has always had issues? Is it because you're with the wrong person and that feeling isn't there for you? You're going to have to really examine all of that. And I'll be curious. You have to write me back and tell me how it all turned out. But for all of you out there, I hope this helps you at least put on a realistic lens and try. I know it's very hard. The younger you are, the harder it is because, it just is hard. I look back and think, why did I do that? And I'm not saying we're perfect when we're older either, mind you, but the younger we are, the more we have less life experience and we have more emotions and more, I don't know, hormones and stuff that kind of screw us all up. But maybe that's the whole point. I mean, maybe none of us would ever get married if we weren't young and had hormones. We would just go, yeah, I'm not doing it. Maybe that's the way humans are supposed to be. But it's a little tricky. But I do think your email showed me they have a bunch of issues and not just the one. But consider those things, and I'll look forward to your comments for whatever you decide. And also for all of you out there, please put your comments below. What are your experiences? Did you feel pressured into marriage because of society? Did you finally get married because of society? Did you, what about the children's choice? Where have you come with that? I'll be curious about all your comments on that because I think we can all share that. It's not a very easy subject, and we all have different reasons for things. Especially when times change, we have different reasons for things. As far as like women, for example, the divorce issue these days. Once upon a time, if a couple got divorced, she got alimony hands down, that no questions asked. And today, it's almost impossible to get alimony unless you have a really top lawyer and a Hollywood star. Other than that, it's really hard. He's like, oh, you can go get a job. Even if you've been home with the kids for 20 years, you don't get alimony anymore. So a lot of women are like, hey, I can't take the chance of staying home with my children because I think I'll be out in the cold if I get divorced. It's not unreasonable. So you have two people working and now you have the daycare problem. I chose to stay home and homeschool. I didn't have the daycare problem, but I ended up with a divorce problem and got zero alimony. There you go. And I started out with nothing. I basically got screwed in a divorce. So And he had, on the other hand, been working for 20 years, and he's went off with a six-figure salary and the company car, and the company laptop, and the company insurance. Anyway, but these are the things world changes. And when the world changes, we each have to look at how the world is and what are we going to do within that world, and who are we doing it with? And sometimes that's the real important thing. Who are we doing it with? Okay, that's it for now. Thank you for being here. Again, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time with another Dear Profiler Pat. Bye.